Shalom and welcome to Scripture 365. We are going to read the book of Daniel. Daniel and his three companions and the people of Jerusalem were taken captive into Persia, or what we know as Babel. And he went through a series of kings, and we don't know if Daniel was a prophet or if it was just a writing of Daniel, because Daniel is divided into two aspects. First, into interpretation of dreams that the kings had, and then he was shown visions in the second part. But it's all one book. There are 12 chapters. So, in the English translations, they have Daniel's in the prophetic aspect, in the books with the prophets. And in the Tanakh, or the Jewish Bible, they have him as a writing. So we don't really know whether it is a writing like Psalms and Solomon and Proverbs, or if it is in the prophetic. So let's call it prophetic writings, because we have both aspects of it. So today we are going to read the first 6 chapters of Daniel. Follow along. Daniel chapter 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Jehoiakim of Yehudah, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon came to Jerusalem and laid siege on it. Yah delivered King Jehoiakim of Yehudah into his power, together with some of the vessels of the house of Yah. And he brought them to the land of Shinar, to the house of his God. He deposited the vessels in the treasury of his God. Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, the chief officer, to bring some Israelites of royal descent and of the nobility, youths without blemish, handsome, proficient in all wisdom, knowledgeable and intelligent, and capable of serving in the royal palace, and teach them the writings and the language of the Chaldeans. The king allotted daily rations to them from the king's food and from the wine he drank. They were to be educated for 3 years, at the end of which they were to enter the king's service. Among them were the Judahites, Daniel, Shananiah, Michael, and Azariah. The chief officer gave them new names. He named Daniel, Belshazzar, Shananiah, Shadrach, Michael, Meshach, and Azariah, Abednego. Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the king's food or the wine he drank, so he sought permission of the chief officer not to defile himself. And Yah dispossessed the chief officer to be kind and compassionate toward Daniel. The chief officer said to Daniel, I fear that my lord, the king, who allotted food and drink to you, will notice that you look out of sort unlike the other youths of your age, and you will put my life in jeopardy with the king. Daniel replied to the God whom the chief officer had put in charge of Daniel, Shananiah, Michael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days. giving us legumes to eat and water to drink. Legumes means vegetables. The company then compare our appearance with that of the youths who eat of the king's food and do what your servants with your servants as you see fit. He agreed to this plan of theirs and tested them for 10 days. When the 10 days were over, they looked better and healthier than all the youths who were eating of the king's food. So the god kept on removing their food and wine they were supposed to drink and gave them legumes. Yah made all four of these young men intelligent and proficient in all writings and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding of visions and dreams of all kinds. When the time the king had set for their presentation, he came. The chief officer presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king spoke with them, and of them all, none was equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So these entered the king's service. Whenever the king put a question to them, requiring wisdom and understanding, he found them to be 10 times better than all the magicians and exorcists throughout his realm. Daniel was there until the first year of King Cyrus. Chapter 2. In the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. His spirit was agitated, yet he was overcome by sleep. The king ordered the magicians, exorcists, sorcerers, and Chaldeans to be summoned in order to tell the king what he had dreamed. They came and stood before the king, and the king said to them, I have had a dream, and I am full of anxiety to know what I have dreamed. The Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic. O king, live forever. Relate the dream to your servants, and we will tell its meaning. The king said in reply of the Chaldeans, I hereby decree, if you will not make the dream and its meaning known to me, you shall be torn limb from limb, and your houses confiscated. But if you tell the dream and its meaning, you shall receive from me gifts, presents, and great honor. Therefore tell me the dream and its meaning. Once again they answered, let the king relate the dream to his servants, and we will tell its meaning. The king said in reply, it is clear to me that you are playing for time, since you see that I have decreed that if you do not make the dream known to me, there is but one verdict for you. You have conspired to tell me something false and fraudulent until circumstances change. So relate the dream to me, and I will know then that you can tell its meaning. The Chaldeans replied to the king, there is no one on earth who can satisfy the king's demand for great king or ruler. None has ever asked such a thing of any magician, exorcist, or Chaldean. The thing asked by the king is difficult. There is no one who can tell it to the king except the gods, whose abode is not among mortals. Whereupon the king flew into a violent rage, and gave an order to do away with all the wise men of Babylon. The decree condemned the wise men to death was issued. Daniel and his companions were about to be put to death. When Daniel remonstrated with Arioch, the captain of the royal guard, who had set out to put the wise men of Babylon to death. He spoke up and said to Arioch, the royal officer, "Why is the decree of the king so urgent?" Thereupon Arioch informed Daniel of the matter. So Daniel went to ask the king for time, that he might tell the meaning of to the king. Then Daniel went to his house and informed the companions Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah of the matter, that they might implore of the God of heaven for help regarding this mystery, so that Daniel and his colleagues would not be put to death together with other wise men of Babylon. The mystery was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel spoke up and said, "Let the name of Yah be blessed forever and ever, for wisdom and power are his. He changes times and seasons, removes kings and installs kings. He gives the wise the wisdom and knowledge for those who know. He reveals deep and hidden things, knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. I acknowledge and praise you, O God of my fathers, you who have given me wisdom and power, for now you have let me to know what we ask of you. You have let us know that concerns the king." Thereupon Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to do away with the wise men of Babylon. He came and said to him as follows, "Do not do away with the wise men of Babylon. Bring me to the king, and I will tell the king the meaning." So Arioch rushed Daniel into the king's presence and said to him, "I have found among the exiles of Yehuda a man who can make the meaning known to the king." The king said in reply to Daniel, who was called Belshazzar, "Can you really make known to me the dream that I saw and its meaning?" Daniel answered the king and said, "The mystery about which the king is inquired, wise men, exorcists, magicians, diviners, cannot tell to the king. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what is to be at the end of days. That is your dream and the vision that entered your mind in bed. O king, the thought that came to your mind in your bed are about future events. He who reveals mysteries has let you know what is to happen, not because my wisdom is greater than that of other creatures has this mystery been revealed to me, but in order that the meaning should be made known to the king, and that you may know the thoughts of your mind. O king, as you looked on, there appeared a great statue. This statue which was huge, and its brightness surpassing, stood before you, and its appearance was awesome. The head of the statue was fine gold. Its breast and arms were of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze. Its legs were of iron, and its feet part iron, part clay. As you look on, a stone was hewn out, not by hands, and struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and crushed them. All at once the iron, clay, bronze, silver, and gold were crushed and became like chaff of the threshing floor of summer. The wind carried them off until no trace of them was left, but the stone that struck the statue became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Such was the dream, and we will now tell the king its meaning. You, O king, King of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given kingdom, power, might, and glory, into whose hands he has given men, wild beasts, and the fowls of heaven, wherever they may dwell, and to whom he has given dominion over them all. You are the head of gold. But another kingdom will arise after you, inferior to yours, then yet a third kingdom of bronze, which will rule over the whole earth. But the fourth kingdom will be as strong as iron, just as iron crushes and shatters everything, and like iron that smashes, so will it crush and smash all things. You say the feet and the toe. You saw the feet and the toes. Potter's clay and pot iron. That means it will be a divided kingdom. It will have only some of its ability of iron, inasmuch as you saw iron mixed with common clay. And the toes were pot iron and pot clay. That means the kingdom will be in part strong and in part weak. You saw iron mixed with common clay, but that means that shall intermingle with the offspring of the man, but shall not hold together, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the time of those kings, the God of heaven will establish a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, the kingdom that shall not be transferred to another people. It will crush and wipe out all these kingdoms, but shall itself last forever. Just as you saw how a stone was hewn from the mountain, not by hand, and crushed the iron, bronze, clay, silver, and gold, the great God has made known to the king what will happen to the future. The dream is sure and its interpretation reliable. Then King Nebuchadnezzar prostrated himself and paid homage to Daniel and ordered that a meal offering, and pleasing offerings are made to him. The king said in reply to Daniel, "Truly your God must be the great God of gods and Lord of kings, and the revealer of mysteries, to have enabled you to reveal this mystery." The king then elevated Daniel and gave him very many gifts and made him governor over the whole province of Babylon and chief perfect of all the wise men of Babylon. At Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to administer the province to administrate the province of Babylon, while Daniel himself was at the king's court. Chapter 3. King Nebuchadnezzar made a statue of gold, 60 amos high and 6 amos broad. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar then sent word to gather the satraps, prefects, governors, counselors, treasurers, judges, officers, and all the provincial officials to attend the dedication of the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, counselors, treasurers, judges, officers, and all the provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and stood before the statue that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. The herald proclaimed in a loud voice, "You are commanded, O people and nations of every language, when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, silver, lyre, psaltery, bagpipe, and all other types of instruments, to fall down and worship the statue of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever will not fall down and worship shall at once be thrown into a furnace, burning fiery furnace." And so, as soon as all the people heard the sound of the horn, pipe, silver, lyre, psaltery, and all other types of instruments, all peoples and nations of every language fell down and worshipped the statue of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Seizing the occasion, certain Chaldeans came forward to slander the Yehudim. They spoke up and said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You, O king, gave an order that everyone who hears the horn, pipe, silver, lyre, psaltery, bagpipe, and all types of instruments must fall down and worship the golden statue. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be thrown in the burning fiery furnace. There are certain Yehudim whom you appointed to administer the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men pay no heed to you, O king. They do not serve your God or worship the statue of gold that you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar, in raging fury, ordered Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be brought. So those men who were brought before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spoke to them and said, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my God or worship the statue of gold that I have set up? Now, if you are ready to fall down and worship the statue that I have made, when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, silver, lyre, psaltery, and bagpipes, and all other instruments, well and good. But if you will not worship, you shall at once be thrown into the burning fiery furnace. And what God is there that can save you from my power?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said in reply to the king, "O king, we have no need to answer you in this matter, for if so, it must be our God whom we serve is able to save us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will save us from your power, O king. But even if he does not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your God or worship the statue of gold that you have set up." King Nebuchadnezzar was so filled with rage at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that his visage was disordered, and he gave an order to heat up the furnace to 7 times its usual heat. He commanded some of the strongest men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and to throw them into the burning fiery furnace. So these men, in their shirts, trousers, hats, and other garments, were bound and thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Because the king's order was urgent and the furnace was heated to excess, a tongue of flame killed the man who carried up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, dropped, bound into the burning fiery furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and rising in haste, addressed his companions, saying, "Did we not throw 3 men bound into the fire?" They spoke in reply, "Surely, O king." He answered, "But I see 4 men walking about unbound and unharmed in the fire, and the 4th looks like a divine being." Nebuchadnezzar then approached the hatch of the burning fire furnace and called, "Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High, come out!" So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire. The satraps, the prefects, the governors, and the royal companions gathered around to look at those men, on whose body the fire had no effect, the hair of whose head was not been singed, whose shirts looked no different, to whom not even the odor of fire clung. Nebuchadnezzar spoke up and said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel to save his servants, who trusting in him flouted the king's decree at the risk of their lives rather than serve or worship any god but their own God. I hereby give an order that anyone of any people or nation or whatever language who blasphemes the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb and his house confiscated. For there is no other God who is able to save in this way." Thereupon the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar, to all people and nations of every language that inhabit the whole earth. May your well-being abound. The signs and wonders of the Most High God has worked for me. I am pleased to relate how great are his signs, how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion endures throughout the generations. Chapter 4. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was living sincerely in my house, flourishing in my place. I had a dream that frightened me, and my thoughts in bed and the vision of mine alarmed me. I gave an order to bring all the wise men of Babylon before me to let me know the meaning of the dream. The magicians, exorcists, Chaldeans, and diviners came, and I related the dream to them, but they could not make its meaning known to me. Finally, Daniel, called Belshazzar, gave after the name of my God, in whom the spirit of the holy gods was, came to me, and I related the dream to him, saying, "Belshazzar, chief magician, in whom I know the spirit of the holy gods to be, and whom no mystery baffles, tell me the meaning of my dream vision. that I have seen. In the vision of my mind, in bed, I saw a tree of great height in the midst of the earth. The tree grew and became mighty. Its top reached heaven, and it was visible to the ends of the earth. Its foliage was beautiful, and its fruit abundant. There was food for all in it. Beneath the beasts of the field found shade, and the birds of the sky dwelt in its branches. All creatures fed on it. In the vision of mine in bed, I looked and saw a holy watcher coming down from heaven. He called loud and said, "Hew down the tree, lop off its branches, strip off its foliage, scatter its fruit, lest the beasts of the field flee from beneath it, and the birds from its branches. But leave the stump with its roots in the ground, in fetters and iron and bronze. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and share earth's virtue with the beasts." Let his mind be altered from that of man, and let him be given the mind of beasts, and let 7 seasons pass over him. This sentence is decreed by the watchers. This verdict is commanded by the Holy One, so that all creatures may know that the Most High is sovereign over the realm of man, and he gives it to whom he wishes, and he may set over it even the lowest of men. I, King Nebuchadnezzar, had this dream. Now you, Belshazzar, tell me its meaning, since all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make its meaning known to me. But you are able, for the spirit of your holy gods is in you. Then Daniel, called Belshazzar, was perplexed for a while and alarmed by his thoughts. The king addressed him. "Let the dream and its meaning not alarm you, Belshazzar," replied the Lord. "Would that the dream were for your enemies and its meaning for your foe. The tree that you saw grow and become mighty, whose top reaches heaven, which was visible throughout the earth, whose foliage was beautiful, whose fruit was so abundant that there was food for all in it, beneath which the beasts of the field dwelt, and in whose branches the birds of the sky lodged. It is you, O king, you who have grown and become mighty, whose greatness has grown to reach heaven, and whose dominion is to the ends of the earth. The holy watcher whom the king saw descend from heaven and say, "Hew down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump with its roots in the ground, in fetters of iron and bronze, in the grass of the field. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and share the lot of the beasts of the field until 7 seasons pass over him." This is the meaning, O king. It is the decree of the Most High, which has overtaken my lord the king, and will be driven away from men, and have your habitation with the beasts of the field. You will be fed by grass like cattle, and be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 seasons shall pass over you until you come to know that the Most High is sovereign over the realm of men, and he gives it to whom he wishes. And the meaning of the command to leave the stump of the tree with its roots is that the kingdom will remain yours from the time you come to know that heaven is sovereign. Therefore, O king, May my advice be acceptable to you. Redeem your sins. Be beneficence, and your iniquity be generosity to the poor. Then your serenity may be extended. All this befall King Nebuchadnezzar 12 months later, as he was walking on the roof of the royal palace of Babylon. The king exclaimed, There is great Babylon which I have built by my vast power to be a royal residence for the glory of my majesty. The words were still on the king's lips when the voice fell from heaven. It has been decreed for you, O King Nebuchadnezzar, the kingdom has passed out of your hands. You are being driven away from men. Your habitation is to be with the beasts of the field. You are to be fed grass like cattle, and 7 seasons will pass over you until you come to know that the Most High is sovereign and over the realm of man, and he gives it to whom he wishes. Excuse me. There and then the sentence was carried out upon Nebuchadnezzar. He was driven away from men. He ate grass like cattle, and his body was drenched with the dew of heaven until his hair grew like eagle's feathers, and his nails like the talons of birds. When the time had passed, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted mine eyes towards heaven, and my reason was restored to me. I blessed the Most High, and praised and glorified the ever-living One, whose dominion on earth is an everlasting domain, and whose kingdom endures throughout the generations. All the inhabitants of the earth are of no account. He does as he wishes with the hosts of heaven and with the inhabitants of the earth. There is none to stay his hand or say to him, What have you done? There and then my reason was restored to me, and my majesty and splendor was restored to me, for the glory of my kingdom. My companions and nobles sought me out, and I was reestablished over my kingdom, and added greatness was given to me. So now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise, exalt, and glorify the King of heaven, all of whose works are just, and whose way are right, and who is able to humble those who behave arrogantly. Chapter 5. King Belshazzar gave a great banquet for his thousands nobles, and in the presence of the thousands he drank wine. Under the influence of the wine, Belshazzar ordered the gold and silver vessels that his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple at Jerusalem to be brought, so that the king and his nobles, his consorts, and his concubines could drink of them. The golden vessels that had been taken out of the sanctuary of the house of God in Jerusalem were then brought, and the king, his nobles, his consorts, and his concubines drank from them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and silver and bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Just then the finger of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace opposite the lampstand, so that the king could see the hand as it wrote. The king's face darkened, and his thoughts alarmed him. The joints of his loins were loosened, and his knees knocked together. The king called loudly for the exorcists, Chaldeans, and diviners to be brought forth. The king addressed the wise men of Babylon. Whoever can read this writing and tell me its meaning shall be clothed in purple and wear a golden chain on his neck, and shall rule as one of three in the kingdom. Then all the king's wise men, but they could not read the writing or make known its meaning to the king. King Belshazzar grew exceedingly alarmed, and his face darkened, and his nobles were dismayed. Because of the state of the king and his nobles, the queen came to the banquet hall. The queen spoke up and said, "O king, live forever. Let your thoughts not alarm you, or your face darken. There is a man in your kingdom who has the spirit of the holy gods in him. In your father's time, illumination, understanding, and wisdom like that of the gods were to be found in him, and your father, King Nebuchadnezzar, appointed him chief of the magicians, exorcists, Chaldeans, and diviners. Seeing that there is to be found in Daniel, whom the king called Belshazzar, extraordinary spirit, knowledge, and understanding to interpret dreams, to explain riddles, and to solve problems. Let Daniel now be called to tell the meaning of the writing." Daniel was then brought before the king. The king addressed Daniel. "You are Daniel, one of the exiles of Yehuda, whom my father the king brought from Yehuda. I have heard of you, that you have the spirit of the gods in you, and that illumination, knowledge, and extraordinary wisdom are to be found in you. Now the wise men and exorcists have been brought before me to read this writing and to make known its meaning to me, but they could not tell what it means. I have heard about you that you can give interpretations and solve problems. Now if you can read the writing and make known its meaning to me, you shall be clothed in purple and wear the golden chain on your neck and rule as one of three in the kingdom." Then Daniel said in reply to the king, "You may keep your gifts for yourself and give your presents to others, but I will read the writing for the king and make its meaning known to you. O king, the Most High God bestowed kingship, grandeur, glory, and majesty upon your father Nebuchadnezzar, and because of the grandeur he has bestowed upon him, all the peoples and nations of every language tremble in fear of him. He put to death whom he wished, and whom he wished he let live. He raised high whom he wished, and whom he wished he brought low. But when he grew haughty and willful, presumptuous, he was disposed from the royal throne, and his glory was removed from him. He was driven away from man, and his mind made like that of a beast, and his habitation was with wild asses. He was fed grass like cattle, and his body was drenched with the dew of heaven, until he came to know that the Most High God is sovereign over the realm of man, and set over it from it whom he wishes. But you, Belshazzar, his son, did not humble yourself, although you knew of this. You exalted yourself against the Lord of heaven, and had the vessels of his temple brought to you, and you and your nobles, your consorts, and your concubines drank wine from them, and praised the gods of silver and gold, bronze and iron, wood and stone, which do not see, hear, or understand, but the God who controls your life breath and every move you make, him you did not glorify. He therefore made the hand appear and caused the writing to be inscribed. This is the writing that is inscribed. Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin. And this is the meaning. Many. God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balance and found wanting. Perez, your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then, at Belshazzar's command, they clothed Daniel in purple, placed a gold chain on his neck, and proclaimed that he should be ruled as one over three in the kingdom. That very night, Belshazzar, the Chaldean king, was killed. And Darius the Mede received the kingdom, being about 62 years old. It pleased Darius to appoint over the kingdom 120 satraps to be in charge of the whole kingdom. Over them were 3 ministers, one of them Daniel, to whom the satraps reported in order that the king not be troubled. This man Daniel surpassed the other ministers and satraps by virtue of the extraordinary spirit, and the king considered setting him over the whole kingdom. The ministers and satraps looked for some fault in Daniel's conduct in matters of taste, but they could not find neither fault nor corruption, inasmuch as he was trustworthy, and no negligence or corruption was to be found in him. Those men then said, "We are not going to find any fault with this Daniel unless we find something against him to..." Read this again, verse 6. Those men then said, "We are not going to find any fault with this Daniel unless we find something against him in connection with the laws of his God." These ministers and satraps came thronging into the king and said to him, "O King Darius, live forever. All the ministers of the kingdom, the prefects, the satraps, companions, and governors are in agreement that a royal ban should be issued under sanction of an oath, that whoever shall address a petition to any god or man besides you, O king, during the next 30 days shall be thrown into a lion's den. So issue the ban, O king, and put it in writing, so that it be unalterable as the law of Medes and Persians, that may not be abrogated." Thereupon King Darius put the ban in writing. When Daniel learned that it had been put in writing, he went to his house in his upper chamber. He had windows made facing Jerusalem, and 3 times a day he knelt down, prayed, and made confession to his God, as he had always so. Then those men came thronging in and found Daniel petitioning the God in supplication. They then approached the king and reminded him of the royal ban. Did you not put into writing a ban that whoever addresses a petition to any god or man besides you, O king, during the next 30 days, he shall be thrown into the lion's den? The king said in reply, the order stands firm as the law of the Medes and Persians, that may not be abrogated. Thereupon they said to him, Daniel, one of the exiles of Yehuda, pays no heed to you, O king, or to the ban that you put in writing. 3 times a day he offers a petition to his God. Upon hearing this, the king was very disturbed, and he set his heart upon saving Daniel and until the sun made every effort to rescue him. Then those men came thronging in to the king and said to the king, Know, O king, that it is a law of the Medes and Persians that any ban that the king issued under sanctions of oath is unutterable. But by the king's order, Daniel was then brought and thrown into the lion's den. The king spoke to Daniel and said, Your God, whom you serve so regularly, will deliver you. A rock was brought and placed over the mouth of the den. The king sealed it with his signet and with the signet of his nobles, so that nothing might be altered concerning Daniel. The king went out to his palace and spent the night, fasting. No deviations were brought to him, and his sleep fled from him. Then, at the first light of dawn, the king arose and rushed to the lion's den. As he approached the den, he cried out, Daniel, in the mournful voice. The king said to Daniel, Daniel, servant of the living God, was the God whom you serve so regularly able to deliver you from the lions? Daniel then replied with the king, O king, live forever. My God has sent his angel, who shut the mouths of the lions so that they did not injure me, inasmuch as I was found innocent by him, nor have I, O king, done you any injury. The king was very glad and ordered Daniel to be brought up out of the den. Daniel was brought up out of the den, and no injury was found on him, for he had trusted in his God. Then, by order of the king, those men who had slandered Daniel were brought, and together with their children and their wives were thrown into the lion's den. They had hardly reached the bottom of the den when the lions overpowered them and crushed all their bones. Then King Darius wrote to all peoples and nations of every language that inhabited the earth, May your well-being abound. I have hereby given an order that throughout my royal domain men must tremble in fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, who endures forever. His kingdom is indestructible, and his dominion is to the end of time. He delivers and saves and performs signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. For he delivered Daniel from the power of the lion. Thus Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and during the reign of Cyrus the Persian. May Yahweh bless the reading of his word and protect us as he protected the Hebrew children. Thank you. Hallelujah. Amen. Until tomorrow with Scripture 365. Shalom.